Snowpiercer.
I have nothing to say, really.
Neither do I. Usually we start off with a joke, but I have nothing to say to this. I mean, what did I say? Snowpiercer. There was a lot of praise I heard from it. I never heard of it until Netflix came out on Netflix, and I really didn't get what was the big hype about it. They're saying that it brings a great message about society, and that it's supposed to be this really big, epic film about pretty much judging society and how the poor are demonized by the rich. And I thought, okay, well, I'll try it out. I mean, I saw Chris Evans was in it, and Octavia Spencer, Oscar nominated actress. I mean, we got a good lineup here. And after I saw it, I was massively disappointed. Not just massively disappointed, massively pissed off at how funny it was compared to what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, there were points of it where you just couldn't take it seriously. Like, there's a part where this guy has literally been, like, stabbed to death, and it's, like, literally, like, 5 or 10 minutes later, they go back to him, he pulls the knife out and starts walking again. You're just like, there's no way he could have survived this. So you stop taking the movie seriously really soon.
I stopped taking the movie seriously after they started, like, this woman who looked kind of like a fat Taylor Swift walked up to the weak train cart, and she was, like, overlooking the kids, and, like, that's my news. Something isn't right about this. I was just, throughout the whole movie, I was hearing these screams from the film that was saying, the rich are awful, the rich are awful, the poor are good. It's like, really? It seems like...
Definitely when he threw the shoe at her and started bleeding, and then she tasted the blood.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was just like,
That's what...
okay.
They are so overdramatic. This is like... The script is like something high schoolers would write to try and, change people's minds about things. High schoolers trying to think, oh, we're so much smarter than you guys are about this. Because we were like that too. But man, oh man, they whoever likes this movie, I'm sure you have plenty of reasons to like it, and I have nothing against you for liking it, but jeez, I had a really tough time finishing this movie. Halfway done, I was just ready to go and just stop watching, but something made me keep watching, and I'm not really disappointed that I finished it, but I am disappointed by the end result. So let's talk about the basic story in case people don't know, because this movie is a little bit vague, especially marketing-wise, because it wasn't really marketed that much. So it takes place in the 2020s. There's a second ice age, and
It's 2030. It's like 2031.
okay, yeah, I thought around that age, and they pretty much said that humanity's become extinct. All living life is extinct because their second ice age came and wiped out pretty much all humanity, except for the one guy who decided to build a train that could withstand the cold temperatures. And I just kept thinking of Atlas Shrugged every time I thought of this train, because the symbolism they put out of the guy and the train, it's a mixture between BioShock's Andrew Ryan, which is also inspired by Atlas Shrugged. So I don't know, I kind of got the image in my head. Anyway, so there's this long 100 or like 50 car train filled with hundreds of people. In front of the train, there are the super rich people who are wealthy and have all the lives and luxuries on this train. And then there's, on the other side, there's the really poor people who work for the rich people who live on slop and are gross and dirty because they can't afford the luxuries of, a shower, I guess. And this train goes around the world every year for God knows what reason. I guess they're waiting out the cold or something.
I think that's sort of what it's supposed to be doing. And anyway, the first problem I had with it was that it was just rich, and there was just poor, and there was no middle class at all.
Unless you count the poor people who are working for the rich.
Yeah, but basically what they were doing, all they were was just basically livestock to the rich, and it got seriously. When the first problem I had with this movie when I was watching it was, how is this credible? How would society, even allow this kind of society to come out? Because even though I know there's like a lot of panic going on with the end of the world and all that, there's so many, for lack of a better word, bleeding hearts out in the world that I don't see this possibly happening. That was my first problem when I was first watching this movie, and I'll explain kind of how my idea of this evolved while we go on. But yeah.
That's pretty much it. It was kind of this symbolism that the rich were awful and that they're heartless monsters who like to torture people and they like to kill for no reason. And, I'm not trying to spoil, but the way they're feeding these poor people is just beyond inhumane.
I don't even really get why they do it. The biggest problem I have with the film, okay, I know there's going to be some people saying that, oh, it's just a movie, don't take it so seriously and realistically. Sure, I can watch movies that are like that. However, with a movie that kind of has that overlaying message that can relate to society, it really seems like they're trying to send a message to people. And when you send those kind of messages, you have to live on some plane of reality. And I just don't get... The one thing that bothered me the most about it was that the poor offer nothing at all for the rich. There was the rich people were constantly saying, oh, you're here for balancing. There's this whole pyramid scheme thing where, we all have a purpose on this train. Well, I saw the whole movie, and there's no purpose for the poor people, except for those kids, and even then, the rich people can just literally make kids. They can't exactly, they don't, even if they just needed the kids, why do they have the adults on there in the first place then? It makes no sense.
Well, actually, it did make sense why they were taking the kids and why they weren't taking them from the rich. Like I said, it explains that later in the movie.
I get that. I just don't get why they kept the adults if they just needed the kids.
Except for the occasional kids they needed, or the occasional adult who had a certain skill that they wanted to have around. Yeah, they didn't really have. I didn't really know what were they, maintenance, or that. That was what the guy at the front of the train did. So it was really yeah, they were pretty much just passengers, and they weren't even given a chance. Yeah, but anyway, we should probably get moving on to the rest of the movie.
Well, we just talked about what doesn't work with us. I will say what does work with me. There are a couple there were some times where I could just turn off my brain and just watch it. And there was there's two particular scenes that I took a real big fond of. One was the one scene where they're in that school train car, and that whole thing with them and how they were explaining in its educational video how the maker of this train is like a god and how he's the one that saved us. And the school teacher, she's a really nice, pretty, happy prep school elementary school teacher who happens to be 10 months pregnant. That's how pregnant she is. And I just love her acting. I love the kids. I love the atmosphere because it's so... You can make fun of it so much. And I'm not going to spoil it. Something happens on that train. Let's just say it was worth... I would have paid to see that. It was fantastic about what happened. And the second thing I liked was near the end where they go to the front of the train, and we find out who this guy is who made the train, and he's got this. I expect him to be this big, egotistical, oh, you're here for a purpose, blah 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 blah, and he's actually the most chill of all the rich people on the train. He's just like, hey, what's up? You want some whiskey? I got some whiskey.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing is that when he gets this is a spoiler alert. When he gets to the front of the train, it's basically oh, I purposely, and this is when I'm going back to my thing before, at first when I said, how would society allow this to happen, things get like that? Well, it turns out this guy has organized it, orchestrated everything to be like that, so that the two societies will constantly be clashing, and constantly going to war, and constantly killing people, and constantly decreasing the population of the train.
Yeah, it is kind of a spoiler when you think about it, but at the same time, it does make you think, okay, so what you're trying to tell me is that you wanted us to kill people in order to restart a human-animal kingdom cycle? I don't get that.
At this point, when I saw this, it was pretty much, and it took me a while to kind of really think about it and think about what I was hearing, but it went from being this whole, oh, the rich are evil, they oppress the poor. It went from that, being that in my mind, to a more like, you know, society is so predictable, kind of a thing.
In a way, you're kind of right.
Or they could manipulate society and totally just, you know, and because of how predictable it is, how predictable people is. Yeah, which is one of those movies where it's kind of like, you know, it's really in a confusing, in the sense that, let's just say there's just not enough explaining that goes into it.
There's so much to talk about at the same time you don't know what to say about it.
It's just there.
It is. It's literally just there.
So
there's nothing that stands out about it except for like the two scenes I told you about, especially the one with, like, if you're gonna see this movie, just fast forward over to the part where they're at the kids' school train car, because that whole thing was gut-bustingly hilarious to me. That was so worth watching. Also, when you find out what the poor been fed by the rich, that also was like, whoa. That really surprised me.
yeah, I know. I think one of my favorite parts was like at the end when they're outside of the train. I think walk out and they see the polar bear.
Oh, I know. I thought that was stupid. That was the most campy, predictable BS. I
didn't find it campy. I just found it. It was like, you know, all right, what do? We look at the polar bear and cut.
And it looks back at us, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
It was like this, such a nice looking polar bear. You know, he's so happy. It was like him. But you know, and then,
let's try and get away from spoilers at this point. You know, like, I mean, we don't want to say what happens, but trust me when it's pretty obvious what happens to the train and what happens to everybody on the train.
And even though we let some things slip, we haven't really told you anything on how they happen, what goes on, you know, the events that caused them to happen.
I mean, we're kind of pushing it, but it's pretty predictable. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. By the way, there's a surprising amount of violence in this movie. It's actually really gory at times. So, don't watch it with anybody under the age of like 15. Okay, maybe 13s could get it. Like 13, maybe 14.
Depends on which part of town they're from.
Yeah, but if you're sheltered, don't bother. Like, this movie, it's almost Walking Dead violent at times, and I'm like, whoa, boy, okay.
Yeah. Like I said, sometimes it's really ridiculous. Like the man with the knife, he's dead, and yet he's getting up, and he's.
They have these steroid-pumped monster things from, like, Outlast. I don't get where that came from.
It's like, hey, feeding these guys. It's like he's probably, like, I don't know, like 30 cars away from the front, and he somehow manages to get up, pull the knife out of his stomach, and just walk all the way there through everything they had to walk through.
Oh, don't forget the one scene where they're in the tunnel and they have the night vision goggles. That was also kind of awesome. I was thinking, that's actually a pretty good setup.
Especially when they brought the flames there.
Oh, that was awesome! See, there are some good bits about this movie. It's just bogged down by stupid meta garbage.
It's not terrible. It has good parts to it. You know, it does have stuff. It does make you think, and I think that's the point of the movie is to make you think.
It didn't make me like think as much as it would a film that actually does take itself seriously and tries to offer a good message about, you know, society and whatnot. Because those kind of society films usually turn me off as well as turn off a lot of people because they usually have a cynical approach to things. And
that's the thing I was thinking about. I think this movie was taking itself seriously. It's just that what it gave wasn't. We weren't able to take seriously what it gave us.
If you want to see like a really good film that discusses the impacts of society, go see Planet of the Apes. Like, it doesn't. It's a literal movie about a bunch of apes on a planet, but it takes itself seriously enough to the point that, you know, you will take it seriously too, because it's that great of a film. And Rod Serling, the great Rod Serling himself, wrote this fantastic piece of cinema that was Planet of the Apes. And that's a ridiculous concept, but he still took it seriously and made it. It's one of the greatest films of all time. That's a film that doesn't take itself seriously, but also brings a serious message into the tone. This is just, you know, it tries. By God, it tries taking itself seriously, but it keeps it doesn't know it's not serious. Like, it doesn't have the awareness that it's supposed to be silly.
I feel like once they got past the whole retaliation part. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I think once they got past the first retaliation part, where they got the first fight down, I think after that point, they just didn't know what they wanted to do. Like, especially when they got out of the poor regions of the train and to the more rich places, I don't think they knew what to do. And I also thought it didn't make sense, because they had the nice rich people and the druggy rich people,
There was, what nice rich people?
It didn't make sense to me that the druggies were at the front of the train and the nice, clean-cut, rich people were at more towards the poor people.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
It didn't make any sense to me either. But I have to say, I did enjoy that scene where the two drug addicts were just grabbing all the drugs as they're walking through.
Oh, gosh.
Get on my drugs.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you feel something to like practical people, like, legit. I mean, oh, man. It's one of those films that you have to see to believe.
Like we said, if you like it, like as a whole, and that's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but
It's not terrible, it's not bad.
No. It's one of those films that I don't plan on seeing ever again, unless.
It's just like one of those films that it didn't turn out. I suspect it just didn't turn out the way they had wanted it to turn out. They were expecting it to turn out. So.
That's pretty much it. It's just, don't bother. But if you have nothing else to watch on Netflix, and you feel like wasting your time a little bit, it's a 2.5-hour movie. It's pretty lengthy. But, if you feel like just seeing something that's, passable at least, and, you've already watched the interview, why not? Go watch Snowpiercer. So, I wouldn't say it's worth watching at all, but it's also one of those films, like, once you see it, you've seen it. I mean, it's a unique experience. I'll give it that. It's slightly above Sci-Fi Channel films. That's a better way of putting it. So, tune in next time where we'll talk about another controversial film, which will not be named yet. So for now, this is Excalibur.
And this is Albion.
Signing out. See you later, guys.